Good morning, everyone. My name is Mia, and I am a PAT trainer. We are going to be going over post-retirement. So post-retirement is what happens when you have a CalSTRS member who has decided after maybe, let's say, 20 years of wonderful service that they're going to retire. And so they take some time, they start playing golf, and they go to the beach, and they play with their grandkids, and well, their grandkids go back to school, and the beach gets cold, and really golf wasn't that fun. So they decide, I want to return to work. So this is for those people who have retired and are now working. So we're going to cover the retired member activities. We just talked about, with Karen, those creditable service activities for those active members. So now we're going to be talking about what retired member activities are. And then we're going to be talking about some restrictions and limits that come with working after retirement. Specifically, that no classified employment, separation from service requirement, and the annual post-retirement earnings limit. And then we're going to be talking about some of those exemptions and exclusions from those restrictions and limits. And at the end, we're going to go over the employer obligation. So what is you, the employer, are obligated to do when hiring a retired member. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to introduce Beth and Megan. These are our post-retirement experts in the room. And so if we get any of those questions about post-retirement, we are going to be deferring to them. All right. So to start us off, we're going to talk about post-retirement earnings. These are earnings paid to a retired member who is receiving a retirement benefit but has returned to work. And they're going to be subject to limitations if they return to work and perform retired member activities. So if a member retired from CalSTRS goes to work at, let's say, Bath & Body Works, that is not something that CalSTRS is concerned with. We're talking specifically about those retired member activities we're going to get to. So retired member activities are one or more of the sections identified here. 22119.5 should hopefully look a little familiar. Those are those creditable service activities that Karen just went over. And then the second section, 26113, those are those same creditable service activities, but for cash balance members, all right? And the law book the TRL is a really helpful resource if you have it online or a hard copy back at your office. These are some codes that are going to be really helpful when identifying these activities. All right. So this is going to be within the California public school system. CalSTRS is not concerned if they return to work at a private school or if they return to work at a school outside of the great state of California. All right. And these are going to be performed by a retired member as one of the following: an employee of an employer, an employee of a third party, except as we're going to specify in a minute, or under an independent contractor, as an independent contractor. So that's different than active members. Active members are only considered when they are employees of an employer. But when a member retires and they return to work, we will also now consider employees of third parties and independent contractors. All right. So here's the exception for third-party employment. So some third-party employment may be eligible for exclusion from the limitations if all of the following conditions apply. The employee performs an assignment of 24 months or less. The third-party employer does not participate in a California public pension system. And the activities performed by the individual are not normally performed by employees of an employer. And if you're wondering, you think, okay, I think I have someone who fits this scenario, but I really want to make sure, you can contact Postretirement at calstrs.com, and they'd be happy to review this situation for you. All right, so these are going to be excluded from those limitations that we're going to go over shortly. Do we have any questions so far about retired member activities?
Sorry. I think I'm the only school district in the entire state of California that's using ESS. Is that a third party?
The ESS is through QSS. You're talking about the employee self-service system or another one?
I don't know, some kind of subbing system.
Oh, no, that's.
Oh.
Is that a
If I
third party
can
that counts or don't count? I don't know.
get some
They just started with us
clarification
and they're from other states. They're based out of, I don't know, somewhere. I forgot. Some state, not the great state, just some state.
I like that, not the great state. It sounds to me like perhaps yes. I'm not super familiar with exactly what that is.
Neither
You're
are
welcome to
we.
email me here if you want to give me some more
Okay,
info and I can
will.
look into it. But it sounds like if they are a third party and the payments for the earnings are originating from you, the district, and these people are doing retired member activities for you, if
I don't
they're
know.
subs, in your district, then it sounds like perhaps yes. But email me and we'll talk about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So yes, some unique situations we may hear about today, there's going to have to be some follow-up later. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So retired member under this, a member retired for service under this part may perform retired member activities, but they're not going to do a few things. They're not going to make contributions to their retirement fund. Because they're already receiving that benefit, the opportunity to make contributions is over. That ship on that has sailed. They're also not going to be accruing service credit based on what they're earning. It's the same idea as making those contributions. They're already receiving the benefit. It's just no longer an option for them. And they also can't be paid more or less than an employee performing comparable duties. And so that can include volunteer work. All right? They can't be paid less than someone who's performing those comparable duties. Do we have any questions about that? What they can't do? Okay. So there's also our first limitation here is there is no classified school employment while receiving a retirement allowance. That is under any retirement system by reason of prior school employment. There is one exception to the no classified employment rule. That's as a teacher's aide in a class with a high pupil-to-teacher ratio, or they're providing one-on-one instructions in remedial classes for underprivileged students. So that's the caveat there. In every other case, there is no classified school employment while receiving a retirement benefit, but as a teacher's aide for those scenarios, the exception is made for them. Megan, do we know why?
We don't know why. This education code section is actually outside of the teacher's retirement law, and so it's not actually administered by us. We just provide it as a courtesy, to kind of let you guys know that it is out there. But no, I could not give you the reason why, because we don't administer it. If you do find someone that fits into this situation and you hire them in that capacity, you still wouldn't be reporting the earnings to us because obviously it's a classified position and that wouldn't come to CalSTRS. So we don't have a lot of interaction with this. We just like to give it to you as information. That was your non-answer answer.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions? Yes. We have competing questions. Take one.
So there was a recent law where the noon directors are now, in our district now, they're school campus aides are part of classified service. So these are folks that will normally do the noon duty for elementary schools. Do they fall under this ed code? It was just recently passed in January.
I think we would have to do a little bit more research on that situation. If you want to write that down, or we can take it as a parking lot and get back to you if it's something that's a little bit newer, just so we can give you the most accurate information. All right.
So I know this isn't your rule, so maybe I shouldn't ask you, but school employment Where's the line for that? Could a retired teacher do my job, for example? I'm not in a classroom.
Is your position considered classified?
Yeah.
So,
At the County Office of Education as a STIRS reporter.
Megan, can we get some clarification?
A retired teacher, but coming to do a classified position such as mine. So I'm not in a school. I'm not at a school location or in a classroom. I work at the County Office of Ed.
I believe that school employment is still, I don't want to speak for like CalPERS thing, but I believe that phrase is still used for CalPERS positions. Is that correct, that they still call it
Well,
school
not
employment?
all CalPERS positions, because a retired teacher can work for STIRS.
Sure. Again, I feel like I can't answer that well for
Not a
you.
problem.
I'm sorry. Do you want to? Yeah.
So our benefit specialists that we have that are retired members, it doesn't apply to them because CalSTRS isn't considered a school employer. So I think what it's looking at is school employers, so I think we'd have to refer you back to CalPERS on where they draw the line on that.
Any more questions? All right. So our next limitation is the separation from service requirement. This is $0 in earnings allowed during the first 180 calendar days after the most recent retirement of a member retired from service. A little bit of a mouthful, but it means that a member who retires must wait 180 days before they perform retired member activities. And if they don't wait that 180 days, there's going to be a dollar-for-dollar reduction from their benefit. So this penalty would also apply to cash balance benefit annuitants and lump sum retirements. And lump sum benefit payments are held for that 180 days to verify that break. All right? So we have an example for you guys, if some of you are more visual learners. So we have Mr. Smith. He is our teacher for the day. He retires 5/1/18. His monthly benefit allowance is $1,000. It's not great. His separation from service requirement ends 10/27/2018. So 180 calendar days later, that's when it'll end. So his total allowance during that period would be $5,871. But let's say during that time period, he says, you know what, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm going to go to Placer COE and do some curriculum review. And he does it in July of 2018, August, and September. So that's during that 180-day period. And during that time, he earns $4,000. How much will CalSTRS withhold? $4,000, exactly. So the amount withheld from the benefit is only going to be up to what the benefit would be in that period. So let's take another example. So we're going to go back to Mr. Smith, that same $1,000 and when it ends. So now he's doing some Auburn Union School District educational counseling. He does it June, July, August, and September. And during that time, he earns $6,000. How much will CalSTRS withhold? I'm hearing some different answers. So CalSTRS can only withhold up to that benefit amount. So he was only earning that $5,871, and that's the amount that CalSTRS can withhold up to. If he earns more than that during that time period, there's no more left in his benefit to withhold, right? So that's just money he gets to keep. But essentially, this retired member was working for free, right? Because they got all that money taken out of their benefit. And that's why it's so important for a lot of retired members to know that this reduction will happen, because I'm sure nobody likes to work for free, right? There is an exemption from this requirement, and it requires some documentation. And that's going to be the Separation from Service Requirement Exemption Form, a very unique name, and also known as the SR 1897. All right, and so with that form and an approved board resolution, those materials need to be submitted by mail or email to postretirement@calstrs.com. Did we see a hand raise? No? I was just seeing things then, okay. So those materials need to be submitted by mail or email to postretirement@calstrs.com, and they must be received by CalSTRS prior to the retired member performing any of the activities in the position to be exempted. So there's something to be aware of. The way it's written is once CalSTRS receives the forms, you could have that person start that day. You could say, okay, CalSTRS got the forms, so you can start. The problem with that could be is if for some reason the exemption form is denied, then that person is still going to be held to that 180-day requirement, right? That separation from service. And so any money they earn during the time that they were working is going to be reduced from their benefit. So it may be better to wait until you receive that confirmation that it's been approved before you have that person start. Just something to keep in mind. All right. Do we have any questions? All right. So we're feeling good about post-retirement so far? Yeah? All right. Our next limit is the annual post-retirement earnings limit. So after this 180 calendar days has passed, there is an annual amount that a retired member can earn up to without reduction to their benefit. So the earnings limit is going to be published in the employer directive each spring. This 2018-19 fiscal year, the limit is $45,022. So they can earn up to this amount on top of their benefit without receiving any reduction. So CalSTRS will, yes?
Fiscal or calendar?
Fiscal, yes. So it'll be published each spring, and it'll be for the fiscal year. Unless, yeah.
How do you calculate the 180 days of retirement? Is it the retirement from the school district or the retirement from STRS?
So it is the retirement from STRS. We call it the benefit effective date or their SR effective date. So it won't necessarily be when they might have ceased employment with your district, but it will be with whatever the date is on file with CalSTRS that the member initiates as their benefit effective date.
Do you find the date on the REAP?
Yes.
So?
Yes, you can. It'll say SR, that's for service retirement. And it is calendar days, 180 days calculated. And they can inquire, they can call the contact center and they can easily see their separation from service end date. Or if you're trying to assist, you can email me at Postretirement too, and I can give you a very accurate, because I used to count 180 days too to be sure, and I figured out it's in our system. So just let me know if you need help with that.
For the earnings limit, who's responsible to enforce it? Is it employer or the retiree?
For enforcement.
Well, we're going to jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Mia's thunder for the end. There will be an employer obligation that she'll talk about, that it is your obligation when you hire someone to let them know that this earnings limit exists. But then after that point, once you've informed them that it's out there, the onus is on the member to keep track of their own earnings, of course, and they can be in communication with you if they need help tracking that. They can also call into our contact center anytime, and they can see where they're currently at. But they should keep in mind, of course, that they should be doing their own tracking, because as you all know, you report, 60 days out or, those kind of things. So what we have on the system may not be accurate with what they've earned already, of course. We're also jumping ahead a little bit, but we do assist a little bit to the amount that we can. When we receive the first post-retirement reporting line, we'll send them an initial letter that will also inform them of these limitations. And then when our system sees that they've reached the midpoint, the halfway of that fiscal year earnings limit, we'll send them a mid-limit letter to let them know they've reached halfway. But after that, that's it. And of course, that letter can come, again, late when we've received those reportings from you. So I would say after you've informed them that limits exist, it really is on the retired member to keep track of their own earnings.
Great questions so far. Do we have any more? All right. So CalSTRS withholds up to 100% of a member's gross monthly retirement allowance for excess earnings. So anything that goes over the $45,022 will be withheld from their benefit. And the reduction will continue until the excess earnings are collected in full. And that won't be more than the annual retirement benefit minus any previous reductions. So as we talked about in our other example, CalSTRS will only withhold to what that benefit for that 180 days was. For the annual, will only withhold the benefit amount up to whatever that they annually earn, okay? So CalSTRS can't withhold money that doesn't exist, right? They don't earn $5,000, we can't withhold $5,000. That makes sense. All right. Do we have any more questions? We're getting to the end, all right? So employer obligations, as Megan has so kindly stolen my thunder, there are 2 employer obligations. So the first one is to advise that retired member of those earnings limitations. Let them know about that separation from service if they're coming off very soon from that retirement. Make sure they're aware of that annual post-retirement earnings limit, right? Because nobody wants to work for free. So once they have that information, it's, as Megan mentioned, it's up to them to really keep track of that. And then the other thing is to maintain those accurate records of the members, the retired members' earnings and report those earnings monthly. So it's really important that we get those reports timely and accurately. So as Megan said, CalSTRS will send them those letters if they're reaching when they first earn and then when they reach 50%. If their reports are late, then maybe they don't get those letters in time and they don't realize that, oh my gosh, I'm that close, and then they earn over when they really didn't intend to, right? So that's just one of those 2 things that are very important. All right, so that is all we have for you today in post-retirement. We're feeling good about post-retirement? Awesome, okay. So if you get back to your office and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have a million questions now. So any questions about post-retirement earnings, they can go to postretirement@calstrs.com. And for anyone who was asked by Megan to follow up with them, that's that email address that you can use to follow up. And then for questions about retired member activities specifically, those can go to your employer help representative. And then if members have questions about post-retirement employment or earnings, they should contact CalSTRS customer service at the phone number provided. If you're ever really not sure who to send this information to, and you're like, I think it was post-retirement, but I'm not sure, you should always reach out to your employer help representative. They can always route that documentation for you if you need, just as a little extra tidbit of information.